I thought this was important to include as many people as possible today to get some information out about something that you may know about, something you may know very little about, or not know anything at all. And most of you probably don't watch the news. Right? If you do, one of the big stories in the past 6 months that has really taken most of the headlines is vaping. And we know that that's an issue worldwide, but we know it's an issue right here at home. And we know that there are students that are vaping here. We know that there are students that have tried it. And today isn't about telling you, don't vape. Obviously we don't want you to. But it's more about you need to understand if you ever have that choice of whether to do it or not, hopefully this information and this education about vaping will help you to realize it's a really bad idea to even try it. And you'll hear that today. All right? We have actually a couple of special guests here today. But our speaker today is Dr. Kier. She is from Hardin Northern University. You can see up on the screen here that she is a professor of pharmacy, director of drug and health information, but also a lot of other letters up there that mean a lot of other different things. So she'll tell you a little bit about herself and some of the information that you need to hear. And then at the end, if you have any questions or anything that you would like to discuss about this, think about those things as she's giving you the information. And if you have an educated question or something that you're just not quite sure of, now that would be the time to ask. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Kier.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here today to talk about a really important issue. And I've kind of titled this, Are You Addicted to Blueberries? And there's a reason why that's there, and we'll figure that out as we go, why that's important to talk about that, because you're like, well, aren't we talking about vaping? What does blueberries have to do with that? But we'll put that all together. So I am a registered pharmacist, and I'm also what's called a certified tobacco treatment specialist. So one of the things I do is try to help people who want to quit smoking or quit being addicted to nicotine. So that's one of the things I do. So we actually, in our ONU HealthWise, so some of you, our ONU HealthWise service is dedicated to Hardin County. Some of you may have seen our bus. We have a mobile health clinic that we go out with our bus. We've been at the Hardin County Fair. We go out, we're in Dunkirk, we're in Forest. Sometimes we take our bus and sometimes we don't. But there's 5 of us that are in the service, in the ONU HealthWise service, that are all certified tobacco treatment specialists. And so we are here to help with that. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the options that are available if you end up having a problem or you know somebody who has a problem. And that could be relatives or parents as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is addiction. So addiction is a condition in which you actually become dependent on a substance, a thing, or an activity. So it could be something like smoking or vaping. It could be something like video games or your cell phone. It could be something like gambling. So what happens is, why is it that we become dependent or addicted? Because once we do, it's really, really hard to give up, right? So why? Because actually it affects the chemistry in your brain. The chemicals in your brain change, and your brain actually sends signals out that cause you to say, I like that enough that I just want to keep doing that, and you become addicted. So it's actually a chemical, we call it dopamine. So you have dopamine in your brain. And actually what happens is you get a surge of dopamine in your brain, and when that surge of dopamine hits your brain, it actually hits what we call the pleasure center in your brain, and you go, that's awesome. So that's how it's easy sometimes for people to become addicted. Sometimes it's easier for others to get addicted. So anyone, absolutely anyone, can become addicted. We know that some people are more likely or are at a higher risk of becoming addicted than others. So who might that be? Who might be more likely to become addicted to something? Well, we know genetics actually plays a role. This is a disease, and it's actually a genetic disease that can be passed down. So from relatives, from parents. So, and actually men are more likely to carry the gene and pass that gene to their sons than their daughters. But anyone can become addicted. So we know there's a genetic component. So if there's addiction in your family, that there's the possibility that you actually might be at a higher risk because of that. We also know that people that have mental health issues have a higher rate of addiction. Why? As a pharmacist, we know that a lot of times what happens with mental health is that you just don't feel right. Something's off. So you use substances to try to make yourself feel better. So you're using things to make yourself what we call self-medicating. You're trying to give yourself something to make you feel better, and oftentimes they may go to nicotine. And actually, when we look at certain types of mental health, they have very high rates. Certain types of mental health conditions, up to 80% of them may smoke cigarettes. So they're self-medicating. And that's important for us, and that's why it's so important with mental health issues to get help, to get counseling, to get healthcare professionals involved, because we can help treat that without going to a substance of abuse or becoming addicted to something. So that becomes important. It could be the environment in which you're in, that you live in, and maybe the environment surrounding you. It could be access. We talk about that. That's a big problem. We know if people have access to something, that they're more likely to use it because it's available. We know with opioids, why do you hear us say, dispose of those, get them out of the house, get them away from, because we know with opioids, when we, especially teenagers, we ask, like, what made it so easy for you to get to those? Well, they were already in my house. So that's why we want things like that. Access is important. Peer pressure. Peer pressure is everywhere. It happens when you're an adult. It happens with my college students. So peer pressure can be part of that problem. I've tried it, I want you to try it. So that can be a little bit scary too as well, because people will put pressure on you and you think, well, you know, to fit in, I'm gonna have to try this. So again, addiction, it's a disease. It changes your body, it changes your brain. When it changes your brain, now it's something that you need to have all the time, because you need that to keep your brain. So your brain now directs your behavior. You no longer have control. It controls you. Your brain is telling you, I need more, I need more, I need more, and it wants you to find that. So it changes your behavior. It changes your ability to think clearly, and it controls you. How? Some people, one time, all that it takes. Not everybody, but for some people, one time. There's a pharmacist, we used to have him come in and talk to our pharmacy students about addiction. Because if you want to talk about an occupation where you have drugs all around you, it's a pharmacist, right? So that can be difficult. And if you're a pharmacist that's addicted to medication, just like any other healthcare professional, it's right there, access, very available. And he said he could tell you the day, the time, and where he was at the first time he tried a substance, because he said, it hit my brain and I went, that is the best thing and I need more of it. So he was actually addicted as a teenager. Went on, was successful through high school, was successful through college, and then got himself in trouble as a pharmacist. It took him one time that hit his brain, and he was like, he was addicted from that point on. So exposure. So other people may take more time than that. So a lot of it depends on our own brain chemistry. You also, what happens, build up tolerance. We had a question about that, where each time it takes more and more and more and more for your brain to get that feeling. Okay, so it's not like you can just, you now control more and more and more to feel the same feeling. So you need higher and higher doses, you need more in order to get that same pleasure effect in the brain. And that's how, and then, you know, this is how companies addict you. I talked about this with the high schoolers. How many have heard of a Juul? How many, yeah, right? They have advertisements. Not tough to know, right? Exactly. So if you worked for Juul Juul in December 2018 as an employee. You know what they took home as a Christmas bonus? Every employee at Juul took home $1.3 million as their bonus. I'm pretty confident none of your teachers got that bonus at Christmas. I can guarantee you I didn't get that. I'm pretty sure none of your parents took home a Christmas bonus for 1.3. You'd probably be lucky if your parents took home a turkey, right? Why could they give every employee $1.3 million? Because they're addicting so many young people in this country. It's an epidemic. Because once they have you addicted, now they're constantly going to get your money, right? Once you're addicted, you have to keep paying money for that addiction. And actually, big tobacco, so your big tobacco in the United States, as smoking went down in the United States, they realized their profits were going down. So you know what big tobacco did? They said, oh, we don't have as many people addicted in the United States. We're going to go to China, and we're going to go to Japan, and we're going to go to India, and we're going to pass out free cigarettes. Why would they pass out free cigarettes? Exactly, they're addicted. Now they're addicted. Now they can charge you for them, right? And their profits go up. So don't kid yourself. There's a reason why Juul was able to give a $1.3 million bonus to their employees, because that's how many people in the United States they've addicted with their product. And initially, big tobacco was like, oh, this vaping thing. Guess who's buying all these companies? Big tobacco is buying these companies because now they know they have a large percentage of the population and future population addicted. So CNN released a poll, and it said, what are the most addictive substances? Heroin, cocaine, nicotine was third. Nicotine's up there with cocaine and heroin as an addictive substance. It's hard to quit. So what is it about the brain? Okay, nicotine's a drug. Straight up, it's a drug. Okay, nicotine, whether it's vaping or nicotine in smoking, it's a drug. When you vape or smoke, it alters the chemistry in your brain, releasing dopamine. See this chart up here? Looks very scientific. What it's telling you is that within 5 seconds of vaping or smoking, your dopamine in your brain has changed. 5 seconds. That's what's happened to the dopamine in your brain. That's the chemistry that's changing. You get this dopamine surge that causes that addiction, and then eventually causes the tolerance. So to get the same level, you have to do more and more and more to get that level. Nicotine's everywhere in the body. Our nicotine receptors. We have nicotine receptors in our brain, in our heart, in our veins, in our arteries, in our GI tract. All have nicotine receptors. So if you vape or smoke nicotine, all those receptors. So somebody asked in the high school group, well, you know, some people use it and they throw up. Yes, they do. Especially if you do too much. Why? Because you have those receptors in your gastrointestinal tract. Why do some people have seizures? Because there's nicotine receptors in your brain. Your heart has nicotine receptors. Your arteries. And nicotine, when you smoke or vape, nicotine, your arteries actually close up. They shrink, they restrict the blood flow, which is not good, especially if you're an athlete and you're trying to improve your performance. You need blood going to your muscles, right? We need blood going to our brain. We prefer blood to go places. That's important, right? So why would we take something that restricts that blood flow in our body? So believe it or not, your brain is not fully developed. That's why you're still in school. We're trying to develop your brain. That's important. So your brain continues to develop. So anytime you give your brain a substance that's not good for it, it's causing damage. So if you're vaping or smoking now, you're damaging your brain, and it's not even fully developed yet. So it reduces your ability to think clearly. It reduces your ability to think in class. It impairs that as well. It impairs your ability to make good decisions, and we want you to be able to make good decisions. It also increases your risk of having some mental health later in life. So what do you think is the #1 cause of deaths related to nicotine? Everybody always tells me the lungs, right? The lungs or lung cancer or something like that. Anybody know what it is? What? Tell me. Overdose? You can actually overdose of nicotine. You can have seizures or deaths associated with it. That's not the #1 cause, but that's a good guess. Yes, sir. Vein closures. Yes, in your heart. So what do you want to guess? Heart problems. Number one cause of death is cardiovascular disease. Good job, everybody. That's great. Heart attacks, strokes, what we call peripheral vascular disease. You know that restricted blood flow? If you restrict your blood flow to your legs and your feet long enough, the tissue dies and they have to amputate. Okay, so it can be very dangerous in terms of cardiovascular disease. So you've probably seen lots of ways we can deliver nicotine. Cigarettes, cigars, vaping, right? Snuff, gum, lozenges. We actually use the gum and lozenges to help you quit. We have inhaled solutions, chewing tobacco, snuff. Those are all ways you can get nicotine into the body. Okay, and those are all different types of devices that can pipe. So the U.S. Surgeon General is concerned. Why? He's declaring it's an epidemic because he says 50% of teenagers have smoked. Well, we actually know newer statistics say that number's low. So a third, and this is what scares us, a third of you that tried us in high school or middle school as a teenager, a third of you are going to go on and be addicted to nicotine as an adult. That's what's scaring us, is that addiction component. And guess why they add flavorings in it? They make the flavorings so that you like it, it tastes good, it isn't bad tasting, and that's where one of the things blueberries come in. That's the number one flavor. It shocked me that blueberries would be the number one flavor of vaping solutions, but that's what they say it is. So they add the flavors to make it taste good as well. And as we know, as soon as you're addicted, the profits of those companies go up. The latest news that came out a couple weeks ago showed us 78% of high school students, almost 80%, 8 out of every 10 high school students have tried vaping. Of middle school, 50%. Almost 50% have tried vaping already. In Ohio, now that we're all worried about this epidemic, Ohio is actually looking at raising the smoking age to 21 and adding a 17% tax to vaping devices. We'll talk about why that's important, but just keep that in mind, 17% tax. We'll have your teachers help you with the whole math calculation later, but 17% tax. Lung damage. So as your principals have talked about, the lung damage. So it's a gel. It heats up. It forms a vapor. You inhale it in. Is your body temperature the same as that vaping device? No. So what happens? What does it turn into once it hits your lungs? It can turn back into a gel. Why are people dying of lung disease? Because once that's in there, you're not getting it out. So it's actually causing permanent lung disease and deaths that have been associated with that. So lung damage for sure. Deaths associated with that. Some people are putting marijuana into e-cigarettes. And you'll even see, like if you Google it, people are like, we're only going to die if you put marijuana in your e-cigarette. Oh yeah, not true. Not true. The nicotine's just as bad. Not only that, prescription drugs, nobody regulates what's in that little thing that they buy, that little jewel or that little whatever. Nobody's regulating that. They can put anything they want in it and you're smoking it. Would you do that if somebody just walked up to you and say, I don't know what this is, but we want you to smoke it? You'd be like, what? They're prescription drugs. They're prescription weight loss drugs that have been put into vaping solutions. There's heavy metals that have been put into vaping solutions. The contaminants are scary, so that are in there. President Trump wants to ban flavored e-cigarettes. Does that make sense? You'll see why it makes sense. One, the flavoring's attractive. And two, I'm going to show you that flavoring is even more dangerous than smoking a vape without flavor as well. So what makes it dangerous? It's an addiction. It changes your brain. It changes your ability to make good decisions and learn. It changes your cardiovascular system, so you might get a heart attack or a stroke. It can reduce performance or endurance if you're an athlete. It could damage your lungs. It has cancer-causing agents. I have heard parents say, well, I'd rather they vape than safer than smoking cigarettes. I'm going to prove to you that that statement is wrong. Vaping is more dangerous than cigarettes. So don't go home and say, Kier said we should be smoking cigarettes because that's safer than vaping. No, they're all dangerous. They all have cancer. But I want you to know that vaping's not safe. It has the same cancer-causing agents. Those contaminations, and then of course, with enough of it, it affects your brain. You can have seizures as well. So is it safe? I've pretty much answered that question, haven't I? And we haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet to show you how bad this stuff really is. So they took teenagers, and here's a group of teenagers, they smoke cigarettes. This group of teenagers vapes. This group of teenagers over here vape and smoke cigarettes. They do both. So dangerous volatile organic chemicals which cause cancer. They took the urine from these students and they looked to see how many cancer-causing agents were in their urine. Those that both vaped and smoked had the highest rate of cancer-causing agents in their urine. Those that vaped, just vaped, also had cancer-causing agents. The lowest amount of cancer-causing agents were those that smoked cigarettes. All of them had at least 5 types of major cancer-causing chemicals in their urine. Didn't matter if it was cigarettes, didn't matter if it was vaping. And then we have a thing called secondhand and third-hand vaping. Have you heard of secondhand smoke? Somebody smoking around you, you're breathing it in. Anybody know what third-hand means? What's third-hand? Go ahead. Breathing it out and in. And that's part of what the other part is. Well, that's a good thought. I like that. I like that thought, breathing it in somebody else. But actually what it is third-hand smoke is when the smoke absorbs to anything around you. So if you're in a car with somebody vaping, guess what? You breathe that in. You're breathing in the nicotine, you're breathing in the carcinogens, you're breathing all that in. Not only are you breathing it in, it's attaching to the car seat, the steering wheel, a teddy bear, a blanket, a car seat, anything that it comes in contact with. So one of the things we use is a nicotine patch. Have you ever seen those advertised, a nicotine patch? So guess what, if I put a nicotine patch on your skin, you're absorbing nicotine across your skin, right? Nicotine can be absorbed. So if you're hugging a teddy bear, if you're sitting on a couch, if you're sitting in the seat of a car, those concentrations are even higher than if you breathe it into your lung. If you sit, they show little children that sit in a car seat or hold a teddy bear are absorbing more nicotine across their skin holding that teddy bear than if the parent was just blowing it in their face. That's third-hand vaping, that's third-hand smoke. Very dangerous. The government actually has a very good website about third-hand and the dangers of it as well. So again, very dangerous, even for people who may not be doing it because it's second-hand or third-hand. Anybody knows that little jewel, how many cigarettes is that equal to? Good job. I'm not going to ask you how you know that, but good job. Good job, 20 cigarettes. 20 cigarettes is a pack a day. 20 cigarettes is a pack a day. That equals 1 joule. 20 cigarettes is 1 joule. So, what did I say? It's actually cheaper to vape than it is to smoke right now. But if Ohio changes the legislation and puts a 17% tax on it, it's going to be, so right now, it's cheaper to vape than smoke. But if they tax it, and we know every time we tax tobacco, more people quit. So you're going to see, again, people are going to become addicted, and what's going to happen? They're going to keep jumping the price up, and they're going to jump the price up. So if you think about that, I'm still trying to figure out where some of you and high schoolers get $180 a month. I mean, I worked through high school and I didn't have $180 a month. Trust me, minimum wage has changed since I went to high school, but that's a lot of money. Just think what you could buy with $180 a month instead of buying a vaping component. And again, once they have you addicted, they can increase. So, like I said, once your brain changes and that chemistry changes and you're addicted to something, it is really hard to quit. There's no doubt about it. It's really hard to quit. You can do it, but you need to know like what resources. Reach out to people. Ask them. We have dedicated specialists. That's what we do. We support Hardin County, but there's lots of other places that support Hardin County as well. So I've given you some of those resources up there. And actually, some people say, well, you know, they had a relative that smoked cigarettes and they're now using e-cigarettes to quit. Yes, that is something we will do. I will help clients quit smoking by using vaping because I can control it a little bit differently. I will also work with some people. I have a client right now, smokes 2 packs a day, 40 cigarettes. Very hard to quit. You know how many times he's tried to quit? 5. It's hard. We can do it. We can do it. The best thing, of course, is never to start. But we can help you quit. We can help your relatives quit. Okay, so it can be done. But, and usually how we do it is just cut back slowly or use a patch, some replacement of nicotine, and slowly try to get you off of the drug that's there. So I really appreciate all your attention. You guys have been a great audience, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.